Hello everyone, welcome to my 11.1 Season 2 Brewmaster guide. Now this guide is primarily made for beginners who have never touched the spec, or for returning players who just want a refresher on how everything works. Now with it being said, I'm not going to overcomplicate this guide, it's going to be super simple and straightforward. I'm going to be going over our talents, our basic damage abilities, how Stagger works, defensives, your utility, your stat priority, and WeakAuras that you should be using. Now there will be timestamps on this video, so if you are wanting to jump to a specific part, feel free to. And without further introduction, let's get into our talents. Okay, so to start off, this is our Mythic Plus build that we will be playing in 11.1. I will be leaving the code to the talents in the description below, that way you can copy them and import them into your own. Now for our hero talents, we are going to be playing Master of Harmony, and I will be showing a WeakAura that will make this hero talent super easy to follow. And then for the raid talent build, not much changes, just a few talent nodes here and there, just for simple passive effects. Now the only thing that's really different is that in raid we are playing Nizal. If you have any questions about any of these talents, feel free to ask in the comments below. Okay, now for our basic damage abilities. Now if you play Monk at all, you should recognize these first 4 abilities because they're in every single spec. But the cool thing about these 4 abilities is that they're all used differently depending on what spec you're actually playing. Blackout Kick is on a 4-second cooldown and simply does physical damage. However, it grants you Shuffle for 3 seconds, which basically allows your Stagger to stagger more, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. Just know Blackout Kick is a high priority ability, and you'll want to keep it on cooldown. Rising Sun Kick is on an 8-second cooldown and simply does a lot of single target damage. Tiger Palm, also just a single target ability. However, whenever you do use Tiger Palm, it will reduce the cooldown on your brews by 1 second, which kind of is important because the shorter duration of your brews means the more defensives you have, which allows you to stagger more damage across your character. Spinning Crank Kick is an AoE damaging ability that grants you Shuffle for 1 second and brings healing spheres towards you. Keg Smash is your big boy AoE ability. It costs 40 energy and slows targets by 20%, does a lot of damage, and it grants Shuffle for 5 seconds and also reduces the cooldown on your brews by 3 seconds, which is 2 more seconds than what Tiger Palm did. So you also want to make sure you use Keg Smash, both single target and AoE, as a high priority. And Breath of Fire, which is on a 15-second cooldown. Now the way that this works is you Keg Smash and then Breath of Fire, because Breath of Fire applies a debuff that makes targets deal 5% reduced damage to you for 12 seconds. And Chi Burst is on a 30-second cooldown. This one's simple, it just does a lot of damage and allows you to snap aggro right before a pack, and also just does a ton of healing to begin with to your party. Just to kind of show how the abilities work, we have Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm. You want to make sure Blackout Kick is always on cooldown, and your Keg Smashes, so Keg Smash, Breath of Fire, just like that. And you also have Chi Burst, which is just a pretty big damaging ability. Now I did just talk about Stagger a little bit, but I haven't really explained what it is, so let me explain. Stagger is what our entire spec is built around. Basically, it's a passive where you shrug off attacks, delaying a portion of physical damage based on your agility instead of taking it over 10 seconds, and it affects magical damage at 58% effectiveness. You gain up to 15% mastery based on your current level of Stagger. Now, to explain this in a simple way, let's say someone deals 100 damage to me. Instead of me taking 100 damage, I'll take only 50 damage, and then I'll take another 50 damage over, let's say, 7 seconds. Now, of course, those number values aren't right, but that just briefly explains the philosophy on how your Stagger works. So you delay the damage that you take over time instead of taking it all at once. Because you'll quickly find out that in combat, your Stagger, especially the higher keys that you do or the harder bosses that you fight, your Stagger will go up extremely high. Which leads me into my next topic, is our defensives. Now to start off, we have Vivify. This is just a healing ability that just heals you. However, we are spec'd into Vivish Vivification on our Monk class tree, which means that every 10 seconds, our Vivify becomes an instant cast and its healing is increased by 20%. That is hard to pronounce. So every 10 seconds, you'll have an instant cast of this, and you want to make sure that you'll use it whenever needed. Expel Harm is also one of our other healing abilities, which is on a 5-second cooldown, and if you let the stacks build up, which just happens in combat, then it'll do more healing and more damage. Now, Purifying Brew and Celestial Brew. In my opinion, these are our 2 most important defensives. I'm going to go to a tanking training dummy so I can explain how the Stagger actually works, because I need to take damage in order to showcase it. So now that we're at a tanking training dummy, I can explain how Stagger works. So we have this bar right here, which is below our energy, which is what our Stagger is. However, I do have a WeakAuras that has it right here. That way I can see it easier. It is linked in the description below. So basically, in combat, whenever we take any damage, this bar will fill up over time. Now, with Purifying Brew, it clears 50% of your damage delayed with Stagger, and also heals you for 25% of the amount cleared. So this staggers at 13%. If I click this, it reduces it down to 7%, and then will also heal me. Now, this buff right here shows us our stacks of Purified Chi. The more stacks of Purified Chi we have, will increase the Absorb shield of our next Celestial Brew, which is on a 45-second cooldown, which allows us to absorb a bunch of damage. But the more Purified Chi we have, the bigger Absorb shield this really is. Now, the higher levels of Stagger you have on your bar, the more this Purifying Brew will completely clear, which will then make your Celestial Brew absorb for more. So basically, the more damage you take, the more damage you can absorb and mitigate. Now, our next brew, which is our biggest defensive, is Fortifying Brew, which is on a 6-minute cooldown. However, you might think that that's a long cooldown, but because this is a brew, every time you use Tiger Palm, Keg Smash, it will reduce the cooldown of everything, including Purifying Brew, Celestial Brew, and Fortifying Brew. Now, the way that Fortifying Brew works is it basically increases your maximum health by 30% and increases your effectiveness of your stagger by 15% and reducing all damage you take by 30%. Save this for situations where you know you're gonna die and you're taking a lot of damage, and it'll basically keep you alive. And we have Diffuse Magic, which is on a 1.5-minute cooldown, which reduces magic damage you take by 60% for 6 seconds, and it'll also transfer all currently active harmful magic effects back to the original caster if possible. Just use it when you're taking magical damage. Now, here are a few of our other cooldowns that I did not mention before. We have Exploding Keg, which throws a flaming keg at the target, dealing a bunch of damage. But now here's where it's important, is it causes everyone's melee attacks to deal 100% reduced damage for the next 3 seconds. So you should use Exploding Keg when going into a pack. That way, 1, you could snap aggro, and 2, you could use it as a defensive. That way you basically don't take physical damage for 3 seconds, essentially. Now next we have Weapons of Order. For the next 30 seconds, your mastery is increased by 9%. Additionally, Keg Smash cooldown is instantly reset, and enemies hit by Keg Smash or Rising Sun Kick take 8% increased damage for 10 seconds, stacking up to 4 times. It's just a little bit of an added defensive, but also offensive at the same time. Now, Nizao, we're only playing in raid at the moment, but basically it'll summon him for 25 seconds and he'll attack your primary target and will stomp, damaging all nearby enemies. Now, while active, 40% of damage delayed by Stagger is instead staggered by Nizao. Basically, you'll want to use Nizao when you're taking a lot of damage, and he will help stagger your stagger. And Dampen Harm is just on a 2-minute cooldown that just reduces all damage you take by 10 seconds. Alright, now we have our Brewmaster utility. I'm going to make this super quick and just speed run through it. We have Detox, which is a simple dispel that you can use on yourself. We have Spear Hand Strike, which is your interrupt, which you want to make sure that you use this as much as possible to help your group out. We have Leg Sweep, which is simply an AoE stun. We have Ring of Peace, which when placed down will make non-boss mobs unable to enter your ring. We have Paralysis, which incapacitates the target for 1 minute, which is good if you need to CC something specifically. We have Touch of Death, which is on a 1.5-minute cooldown, which because you are a Brewmaster, you can use a lot more often. So you want to make sure you keep this on cooldown, especially on specific mobs that you want to die as soon as possible. We have your Resurrection ability right here, which just make sure you use it instead of having the heal resurrect everybody. That way the healer can get mana. We have Tiger's Lust, which is on a 30-second cooldown, which increases your target's movement speed by 70% and removes them from all roots and snares. And we have Roll. However, we are spec'd into the talent Lighter Than Air, so after you use Roll, you can double jump and leap it even further and even fly through the air. And finally, we have Provoke, which is on an 8-second cooldown, and it is your taunt. Alright, now moving on to stats. In 11.1, it's looking like our main stats that we'll want to be targeting are Versatility and Crit. However, Mastery is also good as well. So what it looks like is you want all stats except for Haste, which sucks for me right now because currently I am spec'd into pretty much Haste because I tend to play Mistweaver and Windwalker more. But the main stats that you do want to target for Brewmaster are going to be Versatility and Crit. However, once again, take all of this with a grain of salt, always sim your gear, and especially if you're a tank, you're primarily going to want item level above all else because item level gives you more stamina and agility, which allows you to do more tank things. Now, regarding WeakAuras, I do make a majority of my WeakAuras myself, which is linked in the description below. I did just go through and refine a lot of them, so they all should work even better than before. Now with the Brew, I keep my WeakAuras very minimal, and you can move all these icons around. Basically, to go over everything, I have my Stagger bar, which I keep right here to track everything. I have my Purified Chi, which I keep right here. My Celestial Brew, I keep right here. That way I know how much of an Absorb shield I have. I have my Vitality tracker right here, which in Brew, honestly, you don't need to worry about it too much. All you need to know is anytime this bar is at the max, you'll probably want to pop Celestial Brew. and then it'll allow you to do more damage. But if you're just trying to survive, just do your standard rotation and don't even worry about it. I have Breath of Fire, that way I know whenever it's on my target or when I need to reapply it. I refuse to say the name, but I have this WeakAuras right here, which basically highlights this ability so I know whenever I should be pressing it. That way I know I have an instant Vivify cast. And I have Blackout combo right here. However, we aren't playing this right now, so don't even stress about it too much. Once again, the link to all my WeakAuras will be in the description below. And that pretty much wraps it up for my 11.1 Brewmaster guide. If you did enjoy and found this guide helpful, let me know in the comments, leave a like, and possibly subscribe if you like my content. And if you have any questions on how the spec works, how any of the abilities synergize with each other, or just any WeakAuras questions, or anything in general, let me know in the comments and I would love to help you. Because in this video, I did simplify it down and skipped over a lot of the really nitpicky things and just explained how to play the spec. But other than that, I hope you guys have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the Undermine.